for all the little lost sheep and the people who give them a place to belong. Well, you're dead. The kid gapes at me across the table, really showing off his sparkly orthodontic hardware. No, I'm not. Stan kicks me in the shin. Can you cut him a break? He's a freshman. He's been playing for almost a year now. Hey, freshman. Gareth, mumbles Gareth from somewhere beneath his plume of fluffy, wavy hair. How many hit points you got? He mutters something I can't make out, but I'm pretty sure it rhymes with Nero. That's what I thought. So let me walk you through the next part. I lean forward, one hand on either side of my DM screen. It's the final swipe of the monster's tentacles that does you in. Agony crashes through you, overwhelming your willpower, and your lungs pay the price. Ronnie throws an eraser at my head. Jesus Christ, Eddie, she says, but I can hear the laughter in her voice. On instinct, you try to draw breath, but you're 24 feet beneath the surface of the solar ocean, and the rest of your party is all the way back on shore, which means there is no one to save you as the sea fills your throat. That's sick, says Dougie, watching me with wide, awestruck eyes. And there's no one to watch as your body twitches one final time and sinks, lifeless, into the black depths of the unknown. So ends the tale of Ilian the Unvanquished, half-elf paladin and champion of the Lost Lands. Applause springs up from around the table, a respectable smattering from my players. Ronnie and Dougie are the most enthusiastic, Dougie even surging to his feet in a much-appreciated display of approval. Gareth, in contrast, sinks low in his chair, poking at his D20 with a dejected finger. This is bullshit, he says. What's up your ass, Gareth? Dougie demands. You got a crazy month in death monologue. That's like worth its weight in gold. Gareth's skinny shoulders are up around his ears, but he still turns an impressive glare on Dougie. Am I supposed to be happy? He killed me! You're not special. He's trying to kill all of us. Okay. I hold up both hands, trying to fend off whatever explosion is brewing here. As your humble dungeon master, would you gentlemen allow me the pleasure of your shutting the hell up? They shut the hell up, which gives me just enough time to meet each of my players' eyes in turn, while I scramble around, figuring out what the hell I'm going to do next. Hellfire membership isn't exactly bursting at the seams. Counting myself, there's only 6 of us. Ronnie and I have both been members since we walked in the door together the first week of 9th grade, and even though Dougie had resisted joining the nerd club, a bare month of listening to us recite inside jokes from our Hellfire sessions almost had him begging for a seat at the table. Stan, a junior, had come along the following year, though his attendance is hit or miss. His family's got it in their brains that D&D comes straight from Satan himself, and that even touching dice, with more than 6 sides, would be enough to send their precious baby boy straight into the flames of eternal damnation. Stan tries his best to get around this by spinning stories about a weekly algebra tutoring and by giving Ronnie all of his Hellfire shit to keep at her place so his snooping mom can't find it. But even with all this cloak and dagger maneuvering, Stan winds up missing 1 game out of 3. Sophomore Jeff has been part of Hellfire for 2 years now, but it feels like longer. He's been playing with his older brothers before he started at Hawkins High, and he knows almost about as much about the game as I do. He definitely knows more about playing bass than I do, and that's why he's been a welcome addition to Corroded Coffin, rounding out the sound in a way that Ronnie, Dougie, and I hadn't been able to on our own. And then there's little freshman Gareth, who's glaring at the laminated chart of U.S. presidents on the wall like he wants to start using it for target practice. He better not. We can't afford to land up on the shit list like of another teacher, not when so many of them already refuse to share space with that satanic cult. As it stands, every Monday, I start with the process of wheeling and dealing with the small handful of teachers with the smallest slice of sympathy to our cause, bargaining for the right to roll a couple of dice in their classrooms once the final bell rings at 2:50 on Wednesday afternoons. And every Monday, I go through the motions of asking about Mrs. Deb's upcoming retirement and cleaning chalkboards in Mr. Vick's lab, and I ask myself the same question. Why am I doing this? I've never been able to answer it. I'm still here, week after week. Isn't that the definition of insanity? Maybe you should be happy, freshman, I say. You learned a valuable lesson today. I can feel Ronnie watching me. She's twirling a pencil between her fingers so fast it blurs. I don't look over at her. Gareth snorts. How valuable can it be if I won't be around to use it? Some of Gareth's angst slams into focus, but it's not something I can deal with here in front of all these watching eyes. Well, boys and girls, I say, straightening up, I think that just about wraps up our session here today. There's a chorus of groans, mostly from Stan and Dougie. We'll regroup next week as our surviving adventurers journey deep into the labyrinth of Relishaw's the Mad. Gareth is packed almost as soon as I finish speaking, throwing all his shit into his backpack as fast as he can. He shoves his chair back with an ungodly squeal of aluminum legs on linoleum and stomps to the door, throwing it open with a crash that rattles against the wall. Dougie sucks his teeth, watching the door swing shut behind Gareth. This kid sucks. Shut up, Dougie, Ronnie comments calmly. She raises an eyebrow at me in silent question, but I'm already on my feet and sliding around the table. Same time, I lecture the room over my shoulder as I stalk out the door. If you're late, you get the Ilian treatment. Comprende? A chorus of sures and whatevers sweeps me into the hallway. Gareth is already a series of lockers away and moving fast. Hey, freshman! For a second, I think the kid isn't going to stop. But then he does, turning to face me with an eye roll and a sigh. What? You got somewhere to be? My mom's picking me up in like -2 minutes, so yeah. He glowers up at me, adjusting his backpack on his shoulder. As he does it, the hem of his shirt catches on the strap, pulling just enough for me to catch sight of something purple and painful swelling across his side. You already kicked me out of your club. What else do you want from me? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Who said anything about kicking you out? You did? When you killed me. So? I ask. So... Gareth is starting to look more uncertain now, shifting from foot to foot. So Ilian's gone. So I'm gone. So you make a new character. Gareth blinks at me like he honestly does not understand that possibility. I do? Think I'm gonna let someone crazy enough to tangle with a kraken walk away from this party? No way. I lean in closer, conspiratorial. Those other assholes won't last 1 millisecond in Relishaw's labyrinth without your guts. Is it gonna be bad? It's gonna be the worst, I say, and laugh at Gareth's aluminum grin. We just gotta set you up with another character. You free tomorrow after school? I have to ask my mom, Gareth says, but the force of his nodding makes it clear that, mom's approval or not, he'll be there. There's a distant honk of a car horn from the direction of the school parking lot. Someone's losing their patience. Shit, Gareth says. I gotta... Absolutely, dude. The kid takes a few running steps down the hall and then stops like he can't help himself. You're sure, right? He falters. I can come back? As long as you want to be in Hellfire, you can be in Hellfire. He nods, gaze turns inside, like he's making himself memorize those words. Okay, he says, and then he's scurrying towards the school's front entrance. I watch him after he's out of sight. Wow, and I left my Kleenex at home. Ronnie is behind me, arms wrapped around an overstuffed trapper keeper. She pretends to dab her eyes as I walk over and lets out a laughing yell as I shoulder check her off balance. Careful, she shoves me back. Stan's gonna be such a dick if I drop this thing. You got something to say, Ecker? The only thing I would even dream of saying is, can I get a ride? I roll my eyes. This is the last time. Last time, Ronnie promises, following me towards the parking lot. It's not the last time, and we both know it, but Ronnie's and my little script is the foundation of our friendship. She bums tiny favors off of me. I get to pretend like I'm responsible. We both benefit. It's been that way since I semi inherited Dad's van at the beginning of junior year. It's been that way since the day we first met. "What are you doing?" she'd asked. Even at 8, she'd been taller than I was, looming over my shoulder in her beaten-in overalls like the ghost of a tiny farmer. What I'd been doing was feeling sorry for myself. A call from an old drinking buddy had my dad running out the door with a couple of half-finished promises about "back before you know it" and "you know how to work the stove, right?" I'd spent the night watching the drive for him, waiting and waiting and waiting, until I'd fallen asleep where I sat, slumped against the window. It had been the first time he'd fallen off the face of the planet, first in a long string of next times. But I hadn't realized that then. Instead, I just scraped around the empty house for 2 days, living off of stale peanut butter sandwiches and flat pop until my Uncle Wayne had realized what was up and came to get me, swooping me back to live with him at his trailer, till Al gets his head out of his ass and turns up. I'd hated it at the trailer park, mostly because it meant that Dad wouldn't know where to find me when he did come back. But Wayne would not believe me when I stubbornly insisted that a third grader was more capable of taking care of himself, and so I was stuck in this dusty old lot with nothing to do except dig holes in the nearby woods. And then this other kid turned up. Ronnie, as it turned out, had just moved into the trailer park. She was living with her granny because her dad was dead and her mom had gotten sick and started talking to the walls. She had brown hair and brown eyes, and people thought we were siblings when they saw us together. And when I told her I was digging a hole to China, she asked if she could help me out because she didn't have anything else to do. Later, I found out that this was a lie, that she'd passed up watching MASH with Granny Ecker in order to hang out with me. But in the moment, I was too busy having a friend for the first time in a billion years to suspect anything. And even when my dad rolled back into Hawkins, telling stories about some asshole in Kentucky who owed him money and taking me back to the house, Ronnie and I stayed close. Everyone else at Hellfire has moms picking them up after school and framed family photos hanging over their fireplaces. It helps to have someone around whose life wasn't stamped from a picture-perfect suburban cookie cutter. "Home?" I ask as I start the van. These days, Ronnie's tall enough that her head nearly scrapes the roof, and the brim of her corduroy ball cap fills in those last few centimeters for her. She nods, stowing the Trapper Keeper in the footwell. Granny wants me around for dinner. "But you're still coming tonight, right?" The punch she lands on my arm is hard enough to bruise. "You worry too much." We keep bickering as the van chugs down the road towards the outskirts of Hawkins. It's comfortable, a routine back and forth we've done a million times. Once, when we were 13, I thought for a second that this meant we were maybe dating. Having a friend who knew me so well had felt like it had to be special in that way. After sitting on this revelation for a sweaty few weeks, I decided that the only option was to make a move, to plant one on Ronnie, and to make it official. I hadn't been prepared for the way she'd yelped and scrambled away from me as I'd leaned in. "What the hell is wrong with you, Munson?" she squawked, and all I'd been able to do was stammer and flush and run away like a coward. But a few days later, once everything had calmed down and we'd both felt a little less like the world was ending, Ronnie explained to me that it wasn't just me she didn't like that way. She didn't think she'd ever have a crush on anybody. And was that okay with me? I considered it for a moment. Does that mean we'll still be friends? She'd punched my arm in the same place she always did. Don't be an idiot. Now I just groan as Ronnie plants her feet on my dashboard. "Are you serious?" "I don't want to step on Stan's thingy, and it's not my fault that your van is too small." "My van is not the problem. You've got freakish legs." "Let me tell you a secret about these freakish legs," Ronnie says. She still hasn't put her feet down, and I know a losing battle when I see one, so I don't say anything. In 4 months, they're going to be walking into their new apartment in New York City. I almost slammed the brakes. "No." "Yes." "You got the scholarship?" Ronnie grins. NYU class of 88, baby. Full ride. Now I do slam on the brakes, fishtailing the car to the side of the road. Holy shit! Holy shit! When? Last night? Last night? Why didn't you tell me earlier? I'm telling you now. I know why she didn't tell me earlier. Hey, you know I'm happy for you, right? Ronnie just shrugs. I know, she says, but I'm not buying it. Because Ronnie and I are super similar, right? Same broken homes, same secondhand clothes, same haircut, same trailer park. But there is one major difference between us. There always has been. Veronica Ecker is going places. She's headed to college. She's headed to law school. She's getting the hell out of Indiana. Eddie Munson, he's gonna die in this stupid town. It's not her fault. Obviously, it's not Ronnie's fault. But she's always had a knack for school, learning, and all the bullshit. I've never really seen the point to it. To me, Hawkins High is just the place where I waste 8 hours a day, hoping to be charming enough about Mrs. Deb's grandbaby, escaping into a pad of graph paper, and 20-sided dice for a few hours. Ronnie's got straight A's and a deep bench of teachers lining up to write her glowing recommendations. And I've got the last name Munson. It would be generous to call the sound from the driver's window a tap. It's more of a hammering, loud enough that I'm briefly worried for the glass. Ronnie and I both whip around in our seats to look. My heart sinks. I've been so wrapped up in Ronnie's news and my own bullshit reaction to it that I hadn't noticed the police car pulling up behind me, and now there's a cop standing outside giving me a shit-eating grin as he gestures for me to roll down my window. Again, Ronnie mutters. Always, I mutter back, cranking the window open. Officer Moore, how can I help you on this fine spring afternoon? Moore's blonde buzz cut and square jaw give him some Superman-level all-American looks, but no amount of ironing his uniform and polishing his shoes can combat his growing mid-40s beer gut. He's been a shining star of the Hawkins police force since I was born, a town hero, or so I've been told. I can't count the number of times he's hassled me, and it's only gotten worse since I turned 18. If I didn't know any better, I'd say he was gunning for me. He shakes his head, oozing fake disappointment. I thought that was you, Munson. How many times do we gotta have this conversation? That's a question you'll have to ask yourself, officer. You're the one who's always filling up my dance card. That was some erratic driving, Moore tuts. Started drinking a little early today? Nope. We just came from school, Ronnie supplies. She's trying to help me out, but I can tell her right now it's not gonna work. If I search the car, am I going to find any illicit substances? You never do. Moore's expression darkens. He opens his mouth, probably to order me to unlock the back, and I brace myself to lose an hour as Moore tears apart the van like he always does. But the radio, back in his squad car, gives a cackle. Almost like... I need to reread that. I almost said cockle. The word is crackle, and I said cackle. The radio back in his squad car gives a crackle. Officer Moore, we've got a 1016 over on Fleming. Moore gives a huff of exasperation. If this traffic stop had any real merit, he'd tell dispatch that he was occupied, but since it doesn't, I've got my eye on you, he says. Promise? I bat my eyelashes at him and don't wince when Ronnie elbows me in the side. He snorts. Get your laughs out now. Not even your dad could joke in a jail cell, and that's where all you Munsons wind up sooner or later. We're quiet as Moore ambles back to his car. He kicks on the lights and speeds past us, tearing down the road. I watch him go and try to relax my white-knuckled grip on the steering wheel. Eddie, Ronnie starts, but I can't hear it right now. Not from someone who got their golden ticket. Someone who thinks the world thinks is worth investing in. Put your feet down, I say. She puts her feet down without argument. You don't want to be late for dinner. And I hammer the gas. If I'm going nowhere, at least I'll get there as fast as I can. Chapter 2. Hideout is the most accurately named building in Indiana. Its location is convenient for precisely nobody. It skulks somewhere between an abandoned steelworks and a fallow cornfield, and while this neighborhood might have been the kiss of death for any other business, it's practically a requirement for a dive bar that's heavy on the dive, the kind of place people go when they can't stand the sight of daylight. The windows have been bricked up since forever because it's harder to throw someone through a solid wall. The carpet floors have never been cleaned or vacuumed, and the countertops are so sticky they've pretty much developed their own ecosystem. So, what does that say about me and the shithole is one of the bright spots of my life? Junior! PBR! Bev has been the proud owner of this fine establishment ever since her stray dog of a husband, her words, died under mysterious circumstances 10 years ago. She's got dyed maroon hair, a permanent squint, and she always yells like there's music blasting, like this place is crammed with people. But the Hideout isn't where you go to party, it's where you go to lurk, and lurking is a quiet activity. Which just means that Bev's shouts startle the hell out of me every time. Jesus Christ, I mutter, nearly dropping my tub of discarded glasses on drunk Sam's head. The old man just mutters something incoherent and slugs down his rock gut whiskey. She's still calling you Junior? Ronnie asks. She, Jeff, and Dougie are all clustered around the high top, taking turns sipping on a single bottle of Coors that their pool of loose change managed to buy them. Jeff keeps throwing nervous glances back at Bev. Like tonight's the night she's going to start giving a shit about the fact that he's barely 16. But the Hideout has never demanded an ID before, and it's not about to start now. I thought you told her to stop. I wave my hand and drift towards the bar before Ronnie can demand an end to that sentence. Bev is already glaring at me by the time I set down my tub with a clatter. I don't pay you to chit-chat with your friends, she says. You barely pay me at all, I say. Speaking of, it's 10. Bev rolls her eyes. You take any excuse not to work. She's just trying to goad me. I put on my best puppy dog face instead of rising to the bait. Finally, Bev relents. Fine, go on, and don't drag it out this time. Wouldn't dream of it, I say, giving my hands a quick wipe with the dish rag. Across the room, I catch Ronnie's eye and give her a nod. Showtime. The Hideout stage barely earns the name. It's just a riser that Bev's stray dog husband cobbled together out of 2x4s and shoved against a wall. It creaks ominously with every step, and I'm absolutely certain that one day it will give way beneath me and I will probably break an ankle. But it's a stage, and more importantly, it's a stage that will let Corroded Coffin perform in exchange for me busting my ass on barback duty 4 nights a week, and that has to be enough. It doesn't take long for Ronnie, Jeff, and Dougie to get set up. They're pretty much done by the time I grab my guitar from the back. Ronnie had turned up early to load her drums out of the back of my van, and Jeff and Dougie just have to plug their guitar and bass into the threadbare amps Bev never puts away. I hop up next to Jeff, ignoring the creak in the boards, and sling my guitar strap around my neck. Killer crowd tonight, Dougie deadpans. Jeff shrugs, ever hopeful. Drunk Sam's still awake, that's something. Screw all that, I say, we're here to play. Ronnie spins a drumstick in her fingers. So, let's give them hell. She's grinning at me like a devil, and I grin right back. Then, with a big flourish Then, with as big a flourish as this tiny stage allows, I face our tiny audience, and there's this thing that happens sometimes when Corroded Coffin plays. If we're locked in, if we're in the pocket, then it's like we're summoning a gale-force wind or a tornado or a fucking hurricane. Something massive and primal, a force of nature. But all that terrifying power doesn't overwhelm us. It picks us up, carries us, and we ride it until the final note dies into silence. Swept along in the whirlwind of the music, we fly. And tonight's a hurricane night. I can sense it from the first crash of Ronnie's drums, marching us into the jaws of whiplash. And as the guitars come in, I lose myself for a while. Ronnie's at my back, beating out a rhythm that drives me forward, and Jeff and Dougie keep me centered, bouncing back and forth between them. Harmony, melody, harmony. When I come back to myself, I'm panting and I'm sweaty, and the air is still buzzing with feedback from the amps. I wipe a few strands of hair out of my face. My fingers are humming. "We're a corroded coffin!" I declare to a room of people who do not care. "The next one is..." My voice stutters on the song title so suddenly that Jeff actually plays the first bars of Electric Eye before he realizes I'm not with him. "Sorry," I mutter, and the next time I try, the intro goes off without a hitch. We're off into the song, driving through it. But there's no unstoppable storms this time. I don't lose myself, because my attention has been snagged on something I can't seem to tear it away. There's somebody new in the hideout. She's at the bar, a short glass of something brown and probably awful in front of her. Her ankles are hooked around the legs of her rickety bar stool, and even though I can't make out much of her face through the dim light, I can see how her knee is jiggling along to the beat. Everyone else in the bar is just gritting their teeth and biding their time until we go away. This girl, she's listening. Maybe, for the first time in my life, I've got an audience who wants to hear me. It's intoxicating. I can feel it seeping into my bones, my skin, my fingers. I'm going liquid under this girl's attention. Not liquid like water, but liquid like mercury, like quicksilver. Electric Eye is coming to an end, and I do something I've never done before. I lead us straight into the next song. No break, just one chord into another until we're flying. It can't last. Bev is glowering at me from behind the bar, tapping her watch. But I'm not ready for it to be over. Not yet. So as the last strains of Ozzy fade, I throw my hand into the air. "Thank you for being such a great audience," I shout, loud enough to give Bev a run for her money. I might be losing my mind, but deep in the answering silence, I think I see the girl wink. "We've got one more treat for you tonight." "Junior!" Bev snaps, but I'm already turning back to my bandmates. "What the hell, Eddie?" Dougie demands. "Fire Shroud. Let's try it." "We've only ever played that in practice," Jeff protests. "First time for everything." Dougie's eyes are bugging out of his skull. "You're crazy. These people barely want to hear our covers. They definitely don't care about our own shit." I ignore him. "Ronnie?" But Ronnie's looking past me, out towards the bar, towards the girl. "Fire Shroud," she says, and her eyes flick back to me, sparking with laughter. She knows exactly which direction my thoughts are working right now, and she thinks it's hilarious. You know, that's a great idea. And Dougie can't even protest because she's slamming her drumsticks down, driving us all into the opening of Fire Shroud. Jeff and Dougie scramble to catch up, but soon we're all on the same page, and we're playing our own music for an audience. I'm wailing out the words to a song I wrote myself. It's not perfect. I stumble over the lyrics once or twice. Jeff forgets the chorus. But also, it's fucking perfect. And at the bar, that girl's knee is still jumping, still keeping in time with the beat, keeping in time with the beat of my song. I've only barely backed off the last note when the amps give an ear-splitting squeal. I flinch, and then flinch again when I spot Bev's face. She's standing next to the stage, the amp's power cord clenched in her fist, and she looks nail-splitting mad. "Don't push it," she hisses, dropping the cord like a rattlesnake. "You're giving me a migraine." "That was awesome," Jeff gushes, sliding his bass into the case. Dougie is doing the same, a little quieter. He won't forgive me throwing him in the deep end so easily. "That was awesome." Ronnie pokes me in the back with her drumsticks. "Good job," she tells me, sliding her drumsticks into her belt. "You want a drink?" I ask her. "It's on the house. I owe you for backing me up." She just grins. "Tell you what, you pay me back by packing up my drums, because if you waste what we just did by drinking with me, I will never forgive you." The nod she sends towards the girl is not subtle, and I flush all the way to the tips of my ears. "Ronnie!" "Have fun," she sing-songs, hopping off the stage. "You're a dick," I hiss, but Ronnie just shoots me a backward wave, shoulders shaking with laughter, and a moment later, the front door is slamming shut behind her. And that's the end of chapter 2.